There's a near infinite amount of internet mysteries, and countless receive little to no recognition. r/TipOfMyTongue's sole purpose is to find such things, and is the home of endless mysteries that deserve more attention. Today we're going to be diving into posts from the subreddit that, despite search efforts, have remained unsolved. Let's just get right into it. Weird Nick Jr. / Noggin CGI animated short on top of spaghetti. Do you have vague, nearly unexplainable memories of strange media you saw as a child that tend to leave you with this slightly unsettling feeling? OP turned to Reddit to hunt down one of their hazy childhood memories. The post read, "Hello. I was recently reminded of a very obscure animated short that I remember seeing on TV as a kid in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, I don't even remember what channel it was on, but it was definitely one of the ones that was targeted for very young children, around 2000 to 2003 at the latest. The short was created in crude CGI and was a rendition of the On Top of Spaghetti song for kids, and it featured a pretty creepy bowl of 90s CGI spaghetti and meatballs that were dancing around a table in a weird dark room, which had black and white checkered tile floor. I remember seeing it as a bump in between cartoons, and I cannot remember much outside of being creeped out by it when I was young. It made me feel very isolated. I've never had luck searching for it before and thought I'd try here. Does anybody remember this?" Now, I remember the Sesame Street episode with Snuffleupagus' rendition of On Top of Spaghetti. That already is a bit odd, mainly because Snuffleupagus himself could be considered a bit funky looking, and the meatball transforms into a tree. Sesame Street is full of weird shit, but that's besides the point. Thankfully, multiple people within the thread recalled this unnerving bumper, some giving us hints as to the channel it was likely to be aired on, along with the time period and other details. OP was 25 at the time of making this post, but the majority of those that saw the spaghetti short were in their mid-30s to early 40s, indicating it likely wasn't a rare thing unique to the time that OP was a child. Buddy Fluff had such a clear memory of it, and is certain it was Nickelodeon, not Nick Jr., since they would have been too old to be watching Nick Jr. at the time they remember it from. This user added they watched it around the time of Ren and Stimpy, Doug, and such shows. OP was glad others remembered it, saying, "No clue why after all these years I still think about it. Just something about it really stuck with me. Like I said, it gave me a very creepy feeling." Drop of Poison 86 replied to the original comment with, "I'm also mid-30s and I second this. I feel like it was claymation style." A bunch of others would then recall claymation as well. It's unclear whose memories are mistaken, especially considering they were all children at the time of seeing it, with the exception of this user, Skeleton Meat, whose son watched it growing up, adding their son was now 18. This post was from a year ago though, so he'd be 19 at the time of this video, meaning the strange bumper would have still been airing even in the mid-2000s. One of the users that thinks it was a claymation grew up without cable, so guessed it was something on PBS, but said if it was Nickelodeon, that could still make sense, since they'd watched Nick at friends' houses. However, OP did watch a lot of PBS and believes there's a chance of the On Top of Spaghetti short being aired on the channel. This user asked if the art style was similar to Ambi and Dexter, but OP said it was different and doubled down on the very early computer animation. There was a black void around a table with a bowl of spaghetti. The song sounded like a children's choir singing it. The floor was checkered black and white. The noodles and meatballs floated around the song, and I remember the meatball falling off the table and rolling away. It wasn't very colorful. The best way I could describe it is imagine a pitch black room, but in the middle is a table with the spaghetti, with a small light bulb above only illuminating the table and floor. There wasn't any background art or anything like that. Very creepy stuff. The only thing I know 100% is the On Top of Spaghetti song plays throughout the video. You may be thinking all this thread so far is people's recollections with nothing that legitimately could help a search. But there is a lead I'd consider decently substantial, and that is the Children's Songs compilation Commercial Theory. Someone who remembered it had a feeling it was featured in the preview section of a VHS or DVD that they owned. Brundlefly Urinal Cake thought it was specifically a commercial for a compilation of children's songs sold on VHS or DVD. I find this completely believable because some of those music videos on children's songs compilations are incredibly odd. I had one called Baby Songs by Hap Palmer, and more of them were a little creepy than the ones that weren't. This was originally released in the 80s, then re-released in the 2000s, so if a similar thing, it'd make total sense that the age range of those that recall it is so vast. If it indeed did air or exist in general over the span of nearly 2 decades, how could it be that hard to find? I have a feeling this one will turn up, but you never know how difficult a piece of media can prove itself to be found. But I hope On Top of Spaghetti will show itself at last. Song from a cassette tape found at a building site. The lost media community always seems to love a good cassette-related case. User KittyCatCat425 fulfilled said desire and posted to Tip of My Tongue with a cassette that their father found while working at a building site. Residing in a near entirely empty house, he decided to take it home to show OP. I'm willing to bet most people nowadays don't have a cassette player on hand, so they went out of their way to buy a cassette deck in order to listen to the contents of the tape. Unsurprisingly, it was a compilation of songs, all which were easily identified by using Shazam, with the exception of one. They added to their post, "The genre of the song is strange. Not something I would usually listen to, so it's hard to identify. But it seems inspired by religious chanting, and sounds like it could be from the 90s. I can't tell due to the quality, but I think the background music is electronic, but also has vocals. Any help with identifying the song is greatly appreciated, because it's pretty haunting, and it creeped me out when I first listened to the tape since it was at night. You can take a listen to the unknown song." The main suggestion on a possible artist was Brendan Perry from Dead Can Dance, either an unreleased song from the group or a side project of his, since his vocals are very similar and has done songs in Latin before. But not only was the artist of the song a mystery, people couldn't fully agree what language it was anyway. Latin seemed likely, but others were saying it sounded Hungarian, Czech, or even just heard English. I could honestly make absolutely nothing out. User Christos made a better quality version and is the audio I used for this video, so thanks to them. Then, this user was able to isolate the vocals with the help of it. Despite the improvement in quality and isolated vocals, I still couldn't make out any words, which would make sense if it isn't English, but if you want to listen to try to figure out some lyrics, the post will be linked in the description. Comparisons to Erasure and Enigma were made, but I feel like that's kinda adjacent to wondering if the mysterious song is Joy Division. Denny Hayes pointed out how there's a decent chance the tape is playing a bit slower than it's supposed to, since that tends to happen with old cassettes, and someone who sped it up said it sounded more correct that way. But it still didn't result in a successful Shazam. This user was able to date the cassette to 1998, thanks to the image OP provided, which would rule out it being recorded in a year prior. That's just about the only tangible detail we have on this so far. OP did go on to make a second post in r/lostwave, but there were no findings over there either. I'm hoping that talking about the cassette can give this mystery some more spotlight, and will at some point be identified. Need help. I have a strange memory of a TV show no one has been able to solve. OP starts their post stating they've carried this memory throughout the majority of their life. It left a serious impression on them when they saw it as a child and recall watching it with their late grandmother. The scene that stuck in their brain took place in a kitchen, with a green and black tiled floor with colorful walls. Second tiled floor traumatizing childhood memory. OP says a fat kid and his mother are occupying this kitchen. The mom tells the child she is going out and instructs him not to eat the squirty/whipped cream that's in the fridge when he's home alone because he's too fat. The mother leaves and the boy disobeys her. He goes to the fridge and sprays the whole can of whipped cream into his mouth. This results in a huge mess, and the boy consumes so much whipped cream that he dramatically vomits all over the floor as dramatic music plays. The child collapses onto the floor and goes into a coma-like state, possibly dead. As the camera zooms out in a bird's eye view of the boy passed out on the kitchen floor, tragic music plays. A voiceover then states a phrase along the lines of, "Kids, this is why you should always listen to your mother," and it comes to an end. OP adds they've endlessly searched but haven't even been able to find a shred of its existence. They detailed that there is a movie called Thunderpants where the character in the movie looks and is dressed similar to the whipped cream kid, but obviously isn't it. There is also an 80s movie called The Stuff where OP says similar horrific things happen with cream, but that it's ultimately nothing like their memory, so not it either. Is this a Mandela effect memory of a movie that no longer exists? Or could my mind be making up a false memory from other movies I watched as a kid? It's very doubtful that this is entirely a false memory, as OP went to a more drastic length than I've ever seen on the sub and was able to animate the entire scene they remember. The original was live action, which somehow makes it even weirder, but OP's rendition is without a doubt worth showing.
Heading out in a minute, but you have to promise me not to eat squirty cream because you're too fat and it will make you ill and make you sick. So have fun, but I'm going out now. Bye bye. Oh, Mummy said I should eat squirty cream. It's my favourite. I should probably listen to her. Who cares? I'm going to have some anyway. She won't know. And that, kids, is why you should always listen to your mother and do what she says. Look what happened to this poor boy. He didn't listen to his mother, and he got sick and made him ill. So always listen to your mother and do not eat too much squirty cream. The end.
Despite the dire efforts of the animation, no one was able to identify it. Ideas included the cake scene from Matilda, Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, the Monty Python skit in The Meaning of Life, along with plenty of others, but none were the answer. User Register Afraid figured how unlikely it was to be a full-fledged film, stating this had to have been some obscure low-budget show. They suggested going through the CITV and BBC One after-school program archives since OP is from the UK. What I think is most plausible and was brought up by several others is that this was a PSA, albeit a twisted one as this user said, but it would make the most sense. PSAs have historically been peculiar anyway, so it wouldn't be surprising. There were a couple food-related PSAs and commercials shared within the thread, but none were the infamous fat kid cream scene. 2 users did have their own recollection of witnessing it, so it's assumed this is in fact a real thing that is out there, not some false memory. However, it hasn't been found, and if it truly is some obscure low-budget show or a PSA that aired merely once or twice, there's an unfortunate chance it may never be found. But a user with a vague memory of this strange clip has a glimmer of optimism, telling OP they think this isn't just a figment of their imagination, and that they hope they end up solving their mystery. I can only hope the same. When a character dies in the show, the opening replaces where the character once was with emptiness. Memories tend to become exceedingly jumbled up as time goes by. You can mix dreams with reality, and Vinesauce dreams with video games. In this entry, Paradox Nutella either watched an extremely obscure show, or they are suffering from the evil farming game effect. Only time will tell as to which. The content of their post reads as follows. It was most likely animated, but I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't know the time period, I can't even remember anything about the show. It definitely came after the 90s, more likely 2000s or even later. Perhaps I saw it in a wild fever dream because no matter what I search, I can't find it. I think the opening consisted of like a showcase of each character doing something with their name and music in the background. I remember one of the characters died, and instead of the opening playing the usual animation, it was just empty with the music still playing. By empty, I don't mean a black screen. It was just the background but no person. For example, if the character was playing basketball/shooting hoops on a court by himself, the new clip would have been an empty basketball court. I remember watching it and getting an eerie feeling. OP wasn't alone in the recollection of the eerie opening of this elusive show. It's always nice when you're reassured that you didn't just accidentally fabricate some piece of media out of thin air. The more I'm reading over this, I'm so damn sure I've seen this before too. A catermelon assured its existence, but was also stumped regarding the actual title. This user then replied that their sister insisted she's seen it with her description matching OP's. Oberon139 swore they saw it as well, saying they were surprised when people started dying. OP replied, I feel like the first character death was pretty shocking because it happened to the super wholesome/funny character. I skipped the ending to watch the next episode, then the opening was playing and she wasn't there. I remember thinking, what the hell? They've confirmed it wasn't a misremembering of Doki Doki Literature Club, Erased, School Live, Angel Beats, along with a gargantuan amount of other theories. Someone said, bitch, that's America's Next Top Model, but it wasn't that either. Despite this post remaining open after 3 years, the very first comment would resolve a piece of OP's mystery. I'd bet a whole lot you got the idea from this Tumblr post. It's been around for a long time. Wait, hold on, you're like 50% there. I remember seeing this post on Tumblr, then looking at the notes, and someone commented a show that did this. I think that's when I watched it. Can I give you like half a point, lol? Someone proposed looking through the notes on the original Tumblr post in order to find the name of what OP saw. But since it sits at nearly 300,000, it'd be more than a daunting task. But luckily, this Tumblr post did spark a whole lot more details in their head. OP's edit added it was likely an anime, they watched it on a shady illegal video streaming site, and although they never finished the show, it sat on a tab for a while before they unfortunately closed it out and completely forgot about it. Then suddenly, last night, as I'm in that weird half-dreaming, half-awake state, my brain decides to remind me that show exists. And there is a specific scene in the opening that flashed in OP's mind after it all started coming back. One of the characters was a girl whose personality was your typical airhead trope, and she grins while throwing up a peace sign. Her friends are in the background, and after smiling, she joins them. She was one of those comedic relief characters that you know will die to push the plot farther. After her death, the scene just has her friends in the background staring at the camera from a distance. It seems to be a pretty elaborate thing for a brain to conjure up and think it's watched before, but like we've already mentioned, it's obviously a possibility, which OP is aware of and honest about. Like, I'm positive they aren't purposely making shit up. The question still stands. Is this an especially obscure anime that exists somewhere out there, or a figment of OP's imagination? Others have the same memories, but memory can be one hell of a feeble thing. Unless it's ever explicitly found, we will never know. Disturbing homicidal Pingu stop-motion parody video. If you grew up in the 2000s, I'm sure you have a handful of terrifying online memories from your childhood. OP wanted to find one of theirs. They prefaced that it was not Lee Hardcastle's Pingu, and were going to try to describe the video to the best of their ability. The rest of the post read, "This was in the early days of YouTube around 2006 to 2008. The memory of it has stuck with me because of how much it disturbed me ever since I saw it when I was around 10. The video was stop motion and very impressive. The video starts off innocently with Pingu and Robbie, the seal, playing with the beach ball. They're laughing and having fun. Then, Robbie accidentally knocks the ball into the water. Pingu gets really angry and unalives Robbie by no-limbing with a chainsaw. I loved Robbie, so this is the part that upset me most when I saw this as a youngin'. Then it transitions into an entirely different location and scene, which has Pingu and his mother playing a piano. Something sets off Pingu to become angry again. I think maybe it was his mother yelling at him for playing the piano wrong, but I could be misremembering things. So Pingu unalives his mother by slamming her into the outer rim of the piano, where the strings are, and slamming the lid of the piano onto her. Then he goes to play the piano, and when he plays the keys, his mother's blood comes out of them. I'm aware that this sounds like a bad creepypasta, but I figured this was the late 2000s when edgy humor and disturbing content on the internet was just the standard, and people didn't give a damn about kids' feelings on the internet. After the Elsagate stuff happened, I'm assuming the video isn't likely to resurface again. Does anyone else remember this video or have any idea what I'm talking about? The video was remembered. This user saw it on YouTube, but was unsure of where to find it anymore. YouTube was the source of traumatizing Pingu for OP as well, so it lines up. Hopefully it's still around. There were some old, fairly popular fan edits on YouTube I love that are just gone now. So it was just a matter of hunting it down, assuming it wasn't deleted without anyone archiving it. Which sadly is an evident possibility, but it isn't impossible that it is still somewhere. User Dejected Angel recalled it, albeit a bit different. I remember a different first part, which has a wrongly colored Pingu and some other character looking at the camera with Pingu's beak falling off from time to time, and the other character having to reattach it. In fact, it's probably the first of 3 parts in the video you're looking for, the other 2 being what you described. The piano bit, now that I remember, though I thought it was his father who threw Pingu into the piano and killed him by playing it. OP had no memory of the beak reattaching, so suggested they watched different compilations that included the piano bit. Since after this user mentioned it, the father throwing Pingu into the piano sounds like it could be correct, admitting their memory was fuzzy. Someone else was actually looking for the same video, but only the Pingu and Robbie segment, as they had never watched the piano murder. So it seems these disturbing Pingu parodies were likely often posted in different compilations of sorts. Redditors suggested Pingu, despite it being OP's second sentence that it wasn't. Listen, I understand they're trying to be helpful, so I don't want to come across as like an asshole or anything, but come on. Second sentence of the post and you didn't read it? Gore Mentor found a similar crude Pingu claymation, which funnily enough OP remembered this one as well after all. Gory Pingu sure was a beloved niche back in the early days of YouTube. When time passed with seemingly no answers or even a mere lead, OP returned with a promising update. They found a comment on a Lost Media wiki forum thread of someone who had been actively searching for another Pingu video. Since it's on topic, this reminds me of another amateur Pingu stop motion I'd like to find again. I believe it was called Pingu Battle, but again, can't locate the video. It was 2 shorts in one. The first was with Pingu and Robbie. I believe Robbie accidentally breaks Pingu's ball or some other belonging, and Pingu sadly walks away. He then comes back with a chainsaw and cuts Robbie into pieces. The second short was Pingu playing the piano with what I believe is supposed to be Pinga. He tries playing a solo, but Pinga is making a bunch of annoying noise in the background, so Pingu picks her up, puts her inside the piano, and starts playing a piano rendition of the Pingu theme song, blood splattering from the piano. I believe Pinga comes back as a zombie and unalives Pingu in his sleep. Anyone remember this? Yes, Mothman, others do. Still, all we had was a group of people that remembered this vulgar Pingu parody, with no luck in being able to find it to feast our eyes upon it. But OP would go on to make a second update. Huge update. I found the first part of the video here with Pingu and Robbie. I haven't found the second half with his mom and the piano yet. If the video title is anything to go by, it appears to be Swedish in origin, and credits Ocean and Bosse Melon 2006. Maybe that's a lead. Clicking on the link brings you to a now unavailable video. I've followed this post for quite a while, so I saw the video when it still worked. I don't know if it's a country thing or if it was deleted, but I can't watch it anymore. Thankfully, it was archived on Wayback, where we can see the Robbie and Pingu chainsaw video. So we end off this video on a more positive note, where only half of the mystery remains, and hopefully the other piece is eventually found. I truly love making this series because even if it's a small chance, there's always the possibility that these videos will help solve someone's long-lived mystery. So far, it's only happened 4 times, but that's better than nothing, and I can only hope more will be resolved in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've linked below each post, because maybe someone out there has the answers for these people, or maybe they will forever be unsolved. Either way, thank you.